Back tonight on In Focus, teacher unions have taken exception to a move by the KwaZulu-Natal Education Department to strip school principals of textbook buying powers. The department says it's embarking on a centralisation strategy in order to manage costs. The South African School Act Section 21C says school governing bodies have authority to buy necessary educational materials, but the department has given out notices saying it is withdrawing that authority. Joining us for a clearer picture of the conflict. This is bringing to the teachers, the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, KZN CEO Thiron Moodley. Thiron, good evening and thank you very much for your time. What is the rationale for this particular withdrawal? I mean, is there an explanation as to what the province is thinking here?
Well, that's exactly the point, Jabu, because we don't understand the rationale behind it, considering that no reasons were given to these school governing bodies why these powers were actually withdrawn. So right now, we're not getting definite answers from the Department of Education.
Yeah. Do you get a sense that, I mean, we know that the department has been complaining of budgetary constraints. They were made worse by COVID-19. They were made worse by the unrest. More schools were destroyed. They were made worse by the floods. More schools were destroyed. Where they already had a backlog of fixing schools, now that backlog is even larger, and they are trying to find ways of saving money.
But really, you know, we need to look at the powers invested in the governing bodies that are given to them by the South African Schools Act. And because of the department's position financially, they cannot take away the statutory powers given to the school governing bodies. They are empowered by the statute, and these functions are allocated to them in terms of certain procedures that have to be adhered to by the Department of Education. And that is where NATOSA comes in. It's because we're very unhappy with the unilateral decision of the department to withdraw these functions without following the correct procedure in terms of Section 22 of the South African Schools Act, which gives us the procedure that the department must follow before any such functions are actually withdrawn. So that is where the unhappiness really lies.
Yeah. So your concern is really the procedure aspect of it, that they acted unilaterally. You don't believe this particular decision will maybe have a far-reaching impact other than just the procedural part of it?
Absolutely, it will have a far-reaching impact, because let's look at why school governing bodies actually feature in the education scenario. It was to give some sense of power and responsibility and accountability to school governing bodies, the parents and the communities, to run their schools. So they were allocated these powers and these responsibilities, so they take ownership of schools. Now, what we need to do is look at capacitating them. We need to look at ways to empower them, and to so that they have their foot firmly in the school and they're accountable for the finances. So by withdrawing these powers, we're not doing anyone any good. We're not helping the school governing bodies to capacitate and empower themselves. We're taking away the responsibility of the schools, and really it's not going to work in favor of schools in the long run. We need to look at some other strategy if the strategy of the department is actually to save money.
Speculation is that principals or some principals in schools have corrupt relationships with service providers who are draining the department's already constrained budgets. How true is that, and is that something that is rife in the province?
Look, that will always be speculation unless we can actually prove that at some forum factually. But if that is the reason why the department is attempting to unilaterally take away these powers allocated to the governing bodies, they need to fix the problem. They need to fix the problem and put in place measures that can actually address the problem. Right now, they're not fixing the problem. They're putting a Band-Aid on the problem, and they are making this decision on behalf of governing bodies, which is unprocedural. But more than that also, when we have situations where LTSM, that's the Learner Teacher Support Material, furniture and services are centrally procured, we have the situation where there are time delays, and that process and procurement process is also subject to fraud and corruption, and even on a wider scale. So really right now, It's about what works best for the school, because that should be our priority. It's not about the corruption and the bribery and all of the irregular procedures that happen. We need to fix it on a one-on-one. As it happens, we need to fix it. But more than that, I just want to add, Jabu, is that when these functions are allocated, the principal is responsible for administrating these funds together with the governing body. If there's any kind of untoward conduct by the principal, then there's a disciplinary procedure in terms of the Educators Act to discipline the principal. So how do we fix the problem? We need to fix the person who's the problem and not take the policy away, or take what's vested in the policy to actually try and fix the problem. There are so many ways this can be addressed besides unilaterally making this decision.
Right. So you've had some principals coming to complain to NAPTOSA, and I think others are also complaining to SARTU. Is there a decision that has been taken on what action is going to follow this, other than writing to the MEC to request reasons and explanation?
Well, all we can do right now is follow the procedure that's required. So what has happened is we as NAPTOSA have written to the Department of Education insisting that they give the opportunity to the principals and school governing bodies to be heard on this matter. We have to have that principle of hearing their side as well. Because the Act requires that when you have the intention to withdraw the functions, there must be in a written communication between the HOD of the province and the school indicating this is our intention. Now you've got to prove why I should not take the powers away. And this has not happened. So NAPTOSA has written to the head of department on behalf of its members who are affected and asked that we are given an opportunity to follow the procedure in terms of the South African Schools Act Section 22 and be given an opportunity to explain and motivate why schools need to actually keep this function. And that is where we are at the moment. So we as unions are following the procedure in terms of SASA. The Department of Education has come back to us and said, okay, look, let's stop right here with the letters that we've sent out. Now I'm going to give every school an opportunity to explain why they should keep the function, and that is where we are at this point in time.
Thiron, I appreciate your time and bringing some clarity into this matter. That is the CEO of NAPTOSA in KZN, Thiron Moodley.